You know, they say that March comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb. And I like to think that in between what we have are tadpoles. Because every single year around the middle to end of February, my pond fills with frog spawn. And it seems like almost overnight, the clusters of eggs transform into little squiggles. And then here in the pond today, I've just seen that they've hatched. And my little tiny ponds, this little, I would say 4-foot wide piece of water here in the allotment, it has become a magnet for wildlife, including the frogs. Now it's March in the garden and it still is very much winter. It is cold. It's about 5 degrees Celsius today. So there isn't a whole lot going on as far as planting just yet. But what I would like to do is take you through some of the things that I've been doing thus far this month, things I have planned for the second half of the month, and also there has been a lot of activity here at the Laxey allotment. We're in another lockdown, but the allotment is open. So we've had a lot of people up here very busy on their plots. So that makes it a great opportunity for us to have a little walk around, see what people have been doing, and to see if there's anything that we can take from what others are doing on their plots for our own gardens. While I have been really busy on my main plot back here, preparing beds, moving plants, essentially preparing for the year ahead, I've not done much with this plot. I have given it up. I officially have it for another month or so, but I do have some carrots still left in the ground and some potatoes, and so I am going to dig up the carrots before they really start growing again. Carrots are biennials, and if you look closely, you'll see that there are green leaves starting to sprout out of the roots again. And that means that they essentially are growing again and are planning on setting seed this year. And I don't want them to do that because I'd like to eat them. So I'm going to dig these up, take them home, and also I will come back probably in the next couple of days and dig up what I can of the potatoes before they start sprouting again, and they will. You know, I think that I went a little bit overboard with the carrots this year because we have carrots still left over at home from the home garden that we're eating. And now look at all of these. The orange ones here are a variety called Chantenay Royale or Royal. And then I have some red ones. These are called Ruby Prince. And I've brought over one of the orange Chantenay Royals so that you can see the color difference. It's much redder. And then in between, there are some random yellow ones that somehow got into the mix. Normally, this top bed is filled with different herbs. Perennials, I grow the chamomile and calendula here, lots and lots of different types. But because I am downsizing, I decided I want to have this bed for crops. So this is going to be a root crop area. I'm going to put some oca in here, carrots, beets, etc. And then I've moved some of the perennial plants down to this bed because it already had the massive rosemary in the center. It already has lavender on either side. So I've moved the sage here, the chives, and the oregano, or oregano as is called here in Britain. And it looks kind of dead, but you can see that it is starting to regrow. And I hope it likes living over here. It's a bit more sandy, not really sandy, but I've added grit to the soil, so it's a much more hospitable type of soil for herbs, especially Mediterranean herbs. And I have planted this bed up with a lot of thyme. There was thyme all along there, and the only one that has survived for the last 2 years is this one here, and it's doing really, really well. And I'm sure that the only reason that it has survived is because of the rosemary being in front of it, essentially shielding it from the main wind, which comes down the glen from that direction. So that is something interesting. Now on this side of the plot, I can see that the raspberries are starting to regrow. There's some little bits of green in there. I have yet to tackle my plans with the strawberry bed. It's coming, I just need to get it sorted. So many things going on at the moment. And I do have some crops down here. I've got some beetroot and the last of the leeks, which I've been pulling bit by bit. This patch here is mainly garlic, although the area down here is not planted yet, and this is going to be where I'm putting some of the early potatoes. But the garlic has all shot up. This is going to be harvested around June, early July. Several varieties in here, and then I've also planted some more elephant garlic down this row as well. And there's plenty of weeds. I think this is called hairy bittercress, and if you let it go to seed, it goes everywhere. And as you can see, it is everywhere, but it is relatively easy to pull out. When it comes to seed sowing, March is a month where I and others in my climate really need to be cautious, and I would say that that is the case for a lot of people, because while we do have the odd warm day that feels spring-like, the next day can feel frozen, cold, and the soil can be soaking, absolutely sodden wet. And with seeds, they can drown out in that too. And so if you sow your seeds outdoors too early, or you take your young seedlings and put them outside too early, they can fail. And so it's always wise to be cautious and to start seeds off undercover if you can. And that's where having a greenhouse is absolutely invaluable. And if you have space indoors as well, getting some inexpensive grow lights, you can use fluorescent light bulbs, you can use grow lights like I have. They will give you a head start on starting other seeds. And at home right now, I haven't actually sown very many seeds. I have a tray of beetroot and lettuce that I've just sown. They're out in the greenhouse where it's warm enough, but not super warm. They'll have no problem germinating in there. But indoors, I have my onions that I started at the end of February, and they are under grow lights along with leeks. And they'll stay there until they get a little bit bigger, and then I'll start moving them out into the greenhouse and then outdoors, and then eventually out here into the allotments. I've also literally, I think yesterday or the day before, just sown my tomato seeds, and I'm growing 3 different varieties this year. That's the plan. So at home, it's all very slow going. And I've also decided to just take it easy this year because we're just so much up in the air as to when we will be moving. And we got our paperwork through just last week, but there are some things that we need to have addressed with the house before we go ahead and sign the paperwork. There were some boundary issues, which is why it has taken so long. And also there has been some issues with the internet and phone cables. So hopefully it's going to be very soon, but it just leaves everything up in the air as to seedlings and starting things off in the greenhouse, because we're going to be moving soon and we're going to be having to move all of my plants and trays of seedlings and trying to be gentle about it. So I'm just trying to wait as long as I possibly can before starting off too much. The thing is with waiting is that seeds that you sow a little bit later than other people are doing, they catch up. There is no rush. We've got all of spring and summer to work with, and unless the plant needs a very long growing period, such as aubergines and tomatoes and things like that, then there's no rush really. Allotments can sometimes look like a lot of mess, but there's a lot going on here, and all of this is prep work to prepare the land, to prepare beds for the year to come. And the plots just down here below me, a friend of mine has now, and she and her partner have been working really hard at getting both of these sorted, doing a great job at it. This one in particular, it had been left vacant all of last year, and they have really put a lot of effort into putting in paths and transplanting raspberries, all sorts. Even though my rhubarb is just starting to show, there are varieties that come on quite a bit earlier, and at the edge of this plot there are a couple of rhubarb here, and these will be, this is actually ready for picking, this stem here. That'll be lovely. So if you are thinking about adding rhubarb to your garden, research varieties, because you can get types that will crop at different times. You've got rhubarb that crops really early and some that comes on just a little bit later, so you can get those first tender stems a couple of times in the spring. This plot holder has been very busy moving wood chip from a recent delivery onto her paths, and it's a really smart idea to get that done right now. Once you have the ground covered in wood chip, it means less weeds and plants are going to come up in those walking areas, and that means you can focus your efforts on your beds and your growing spaces and not have to spend all of that extra time weeding those other areas that are not productive growing spaces. And I learned that the hard way. I used to spend so much time weeding my paths, and once I started putting wood chip down, it really just saved so much time and effort. And it does the same for many people here at our sites. In our cooler climates, what a lot of gardeners will do is put either black polythene or some kind of dark material on the soil. And this helps to not only kill weeds, but it also warms up the soil. So it prepares the soil for young seedlings to go in. And on our slope, it also helps to protect soil from being eroded away. And I would actually say that this type of landscaping fabric, which is woven, is going to be a lot better for the soil long term if you're going to be using this over the winter, because it does allow some light, water, and air to get through. And all of those are important for soil and soil life. The last couple of weeks of March and going into April are probably the most exciting time of the year for gardeners. We've been spending all winter planning for this, and now it's the starting line. We're sowing seeds, we're getting ready for the year ahead, and we have so much to look forward to this summer. A lot of people have just started growing in the past year with COVID keeping people at home. So you have your first summer of growing under your belt. This year is going to be even better. And for those of us who have been growing for a lot longer, every single year is like a new start. We're continuously learning, we're trying new things, we're trying new plants, and the excitement this time of the year is just incredible. I hope that you are having a fantastic time planning and working in your early spring garden, so late winter, early spring. Let me know what you've been up to in your garden as a comment down below, and I will see you next week for another video here on Lovely Greens. Bye for now. One last thing before you go. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to Lovely Greens and click that little bell icon so that you get notifications for when new videos are out.